almost 2 years sober it's been. But nice to meet you. I'm so glad you all are here because I really, really wish my parents would have what this is while I was actively addicted, because I actually learned a lot more from my dad from these meetings than like the AA meetings or whatnot. So it's really cool that you guys recognize that it's a family addiction, really a family problem. And I'm glad that my parents were able to recognize that almost from the get-go, because without them I wouldn't be alive. I wouldn't be here. So yeah, I'm just really happy to be here. I'm a little bit nervous right now, obviously, but I'll calm down. Well, okay, so I'll start with just a little bit maybe of my family dynamic and how I grew up. I grew up with an older brother, Aaron, 3 years older than me, and I had an amazing childhood. My parents provided everything and anything, way more than I needed, probably so much so that I became dependent on it. You know what I mean? I became very dependent on them, which really what addiction is about that I've learned is insecurity. It's really about having just being insecure, not knowing who you are, not knowing where you want to go. I had no goals, you know what I mean? So I was really reliant on my parents for my security and who they are, I am. I was raised in a very thoughtful home. I grew up in church, playing in the worship band, 3 times a week, hanging out at church, having fun. I went to private schooling, Christian schooling, and I learned great values, you know what I mean? But I didn't instill them in myself. Yet I was still relying on my parents to tell me what I needed to do, you know what I mean? Okay, so we had, a wonderful childhood growing up. I just was very regimented, playing tennis every day, playing tennis, piano. I was always on a very strict schedule, and that also really messed with my head because I couldn't figure out, going into adulthood, how to create my regimen, you know what I mean? So, big event happened when I was about 16. My brother passed away in a pretty tragic accident. It was a motorcycle accident up on Mount Lemon. He was with my dad, my uncle, and my dad's best friend riding up Mount Lemon, and he lost control of the motorcycle, and it took a while for him to pass away, and we heard and watched him, all 3 of us together watch him die, tragically, and it was life-changing, just everything. I couldn't think straight for a year, I can't even imagine how my parents were, so that really determined my bright future with my scholarships, or playing for, being in the Olympics, whatever my big dream was, just ended right there, my life. It felt like it ended, within that, my father, as maybe some of you know, he started drinking a little bit more heavily, and he wasn't so much involved in my life anymore, the way that I wanted him to, you know what I mean? And my mom was extremely depressed, as she should have been, so we weren't really able to, we all chose a different path. I chose to never talk about it. I chose to keep it all down, and I'm suffering the consequences of that now, and that's what drugs did for me, is supplement that pain to make me not feel that pain anymore. You know what I mean? My doctor prescribed me Xanax at 16 and Ambien, and immediately I know I loved it. And my mom caught on. She started, I wasn't allowed to have my pills anymore because I would just eat them, you know? And this is at 16. So, I mean, a few years went by where I was doing pretty good, you know? I was going to school, I was involved with friends, I was working, you know, but I wasn't really dealing with any pain, you know, and with my family being the way it was, my mother being depressed and my dad choosing his path, it was, I think you get that. But okay, so a few years went by, I was doing pretty good, and then I started dating a guy, as it usually starts. And he was a drug dealer doing marijuana, cocaine, and psychedelics, stuff like that. So, maybe I met him at like 23 or so. In 2 years, it was so bad. If I even touched the edge of this corner right here, I would bruise up. There was nothing in me but cocaine, marijuana. I wasn't eating. I probably weighed 88 pounds, you know, and I was skin and bones. I was torturing my poor parents. They were watching me die in front of them, you know, and I told my parents and I came to an agreement that I was going to, after this drug relationship ended, that they were going to be my rehab, that they were going to bring me back to where I needed to be, you know, and I was all for it, except I wanted the drugs still, you know, so I'm having the ex-boyfriend deliver them to my house and staying up all night doing, you know, just stupid drug stuff. But, so it had gotten to a point where I lost sight of everything, and I convinced my aunt and uncle to buy me a car. Like, I couldn't save enough money because I was spending it all on drugs. I couldn't save any money. I'm living with my parents, you know, I'm driving their car. I'm working for my dad, you know, living in their house, and I was constantly getting caught for drugs. I didn't stop, you know, but I didn't know how to stop. And that was the issue, is I didn't want to stop at first, but it finally got to a point where my mom caught me just at 9 o'clock at night doing drugs in my room, cocaine, you know, like, and it just had gotten to a point where we finally said, it's time for me to go to rehab. And this is where my journey begins. So I want to talk more about the rehab part of everything, because I feel like that's really important with anything, with you guys maybe asking questions. So my dad is an incredible man. He did all the research in the world and found all the right places for me. So the first place I went to was a residential rehab called Sierra Tucson, and it is incredible. I cannot tell you what I learned there, you know. We had our own personal group therapist, you know what I mean, and we were constantly going to classes and learning about yourself and why you are the way you are. And it was incredible. I had a roommate with me. It was like a hotel kind of thing almost, and I just got really lucky with where God sent me. But this rehab was residential, and then you're supposed to, after residential rehab, you're supposed to do non-residential, where you drive to the rehab, you're able to live in a house with them, and then there's sober living. So I did the second process. I went to this place in Phoenix called Evolution Way, because so this is really important. The addict cannot cannot go back to the same environment they were in. It ruined me. When I got out of the rehab, I thought I saw the world in a new light, you know what I mean? I was so pumped about being sober but I went back to my parents' house, and it was the same routine, you know what I mean? I just couldn't get out of the same routine because I had been living in that house my entire life, you know what I mean? And you just immediately go back to your same habits, and no matter how hard my dad begged me to make an appointment with my therapist, my mom begged me to just get out of bed, no matter what, you know, it was just horrible for us. We decided to go to the whole process and do the non-residential, and I went to a place in Phoenix called Evolution Way, where we had a men's and a women's house off campus where we all lived together. There were about 10 of us. Beautiful house, beautiful rehab. And then we would go every day to our campus and take classes. And they would do things like they helped with resumes. They would help you get on health insurance. You know, things that human beings usually do, and us addicts are afraid to do. You know what I mean? For some reason, it scares the hell out of us to get out of this little bubble. You know what I mean? So they were really, what else did they do? They did a lot of stuff. Sorry guys, it's been about 2 years since I've been there, so like a lot of the stuff that they did for me. But we would take these amazing classes, and we would learn how to change the way we think or start moving out of our habits, you know. And it was such little things, like we would share a story with someone, you know, tell, just relate to people, because that's what we needed, is to be able to know that we're not alone and that there's a way that you can get help. You know, I honestly, I had heard of AA, but I didn't know NA, CA, CMA, you know, HA. There's specific ones to your drugs that you can be more relative to the people with, you know. So they taught me about the steps of AA, and that's really where I think a lot of why I'm sober is because of AA and God. That's pretty much it. I can't tell you. In this rehab, they would take us to outside meetings, so we would know where the meetings are, and you don't have an excuse not to go. You know what I mean? So they helped a lot with that, and I in that rehab, they push you to get a sponsor. They push you to do your steps, and so immediately I went through my steps. I got a sponsor, and I'm the shyest girl in the world because I'm insecure, you know. So telling a woman, hey, will you listen to all my deep, dirty secrets about everything and share yours with me is kind of nerve-wracking, you know what I mean? But it is extremely important. I mean, if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't push for them to get a sponsor. They need someone relative to them to be telling them, you know what I mean? But mention it, because I didn't know when I was in active addiction, I didn't know what a sponsor was. You know, I had heard of it, but like I had to be told from the rehab how this process works. So I got an amazing sponsor, Amy. She led me through all my steps, which really are not just one time. You're constantly doing your steps if you want to stay sober. It's not, oh, I'm done with my steps, now I do something. No, now you do your emotional steps. Now you do your physical step. Now you do all the different ones, you know what I mean? It's not, you don't stop. Like I can't push enough, like going to meetings when I did not want to go to a meeting and I just wanted to feel pity on myself, or I was tired or whatever, you know. That is what made me stay sober, is getting out of my comfort zone. And now it's incredible because with this quarantine, I was so scared for us addicts, you know, like how are we gonna, like that's a fundamental part of how I'm sober. And now they're doing Zoom meetings, you know, so, which is even better because you don't have to like get dressed, you know what I mean? But they're, you know, they're a different, they have made sure to make it a community. My relationships now are so fulfilling because I'm able to recognize where I'm wrong and where I can assist, you know what I mean, instead of what can they do for me, you know, and that's really what us addicts do, is we lead you dry as far as we can, emotionally, physically, whatever, and financially, every way, because we're hyper focused on getting high, and the high is going to be greater than you guys no matter what, you know what I mean. It's painful, you know. But so anyway, so I made sure that I was going to do this thing right the first time, because I did not want to relapse again and break my family, you know. It was, yeah. So we did this non-residential rehab, and then they led us into sober livings. They gave us set up appointments to do tours. I didn't really go on tours, but I was able to get into one of the best ones in Phoenix. It's called Safe Harbor, and incredible. I cannot tell you how incredible that sober living is compared to a lot of them, because they're strict. They make sure to pick the right people to lead that house, to make sure you're accountable, you know what I mean? But we had an amazing house leader. I was living with how many women at a time that it would fit 12, I think, at a time, and probably like a 1,600 square foot house or something, you know. And it was constantly women changing, because everyone's going, you know, like someone needs to get sober, so they come to a sober living, and they freak out, don't want to do it, leave, or it's just your time to leave, you know what I mean? So there's constantly women, and you're constantly building new relationships with people. And what really helped me was being able to see that I'm not as crazy as I think I am, you know what I mean? Like, there are other crazy people out there, and I'm not alone. And but I also got really blessed because I made one of my best friends. I lived in the same room with her. We were in the master bedroom, and there were 3 twin beds in there, and it was constantly women changing. But I live with my best friend now, who I think she's my soulmate, and I think that God brought her to me, you know what I mean? Like, because how she grew up is almost identical to the way I do, and we, you know, it's just incredible the people I found. But the downfall is that you lose a lot of people too, and you get really insensitive. It would break my heart when one of my friends would relapse, but now it's just common, you know. People don't. I don't know if it's just that they're not being honest with themselves if they keep relapsing. They're not being honest with themselves or with others, and that hurts. I'm sure everyone here has experienced that. You know, it hurts when you have to dig up those painful memories, you know, and deal with them, because that's what I had to do, is because those drugs were so jaded. I lost probably a good 3 years of my life are down the drain, you know, and I need to discover who I am again, and it's been kind of tough, but I'm figuring it out. So I got sober August 8th, 2018, and I guess my 2 years is going to be coming up soon. So I've been able to stay sober for about 2 years, but it's been work. You have to put in the work, and I'm telling you guys now that unless they want to get sober, no one's going to be able to do that. But only you can get there's a whole God in you. You know, you have to really decide when it's time. No one else can do that for you, and it's unfortunate because some people don't figure that out until they die. You know, until they've overdosed. And I've lost so many good friends, good people to one mistake. You know, like shooting up one time a little too much, and now one of my closest friends that I had in the program, she's passed, you know, and it's wild, just the power of that drug, of these drugs. But so I want to tell you guys that my parents have been instrumental in getting me sober. They have been my life support. They really have, and it's unfortunate, again, that I had to rely on them. But if I didn't have, I swear to God, if I didn't have my parents, I wouldn't have anyone. You know, because I wouldn't allow myself to be open with anyone, you know what I mean? And my parents, they birthed me, you know, they know me better than anyone. And so I want to talk a little, I think I'm done. Please tell me if you have like questions, especially if you have questions. But yeah, my parents, I'm like, they were never pushy with me. That's the thing, is they never pushed me to do anything. They always let me decide. The consequences were horrible, but when we decided that it was time, and they guided me through the process. And even though they were hurting, probably worse than I was hurting, I'm sure, they were able to hold me up, you know. And I really hope that someday, since they're getting old, I guess. I know, old and deaf.
Never get old.
No, but really, I hope that one day I can return the favor somehow, because they gave me life twice. They really did. But yeah, okay, I'm done.
So my thing with it, because this group, you know, your mom and dad helped you get to where you needed to be, but then I want to point out they got help as well.
Yes.
Because if they hadn't come to Pale and started changing the ways, so now you've kind of circled back, where had they not gotten help,
yes,
you might not be where you are.
Yes.
So, because it almost sounds like we need to help our children 100% all the time, all the way, and that's not unfortunately working for any of us.
No.
So they helped you get to where, but the work you did, you were the one who decided to stay in the treatment programs. You're the one who decided to find the sponsor. You're the one who decided to work the program. They worked their program. They understood on how they needed to support you and not help you any longer. And it has circled back around.
I'm telling you, it's crazy the stuff that you guys teach here, you know, like our family dynamic is, it's not much different, but it has changed from my mom and I fighting because we're both so stubborn to both of, well, she now knows how to just avoid or go around, you know, instead of us,
You know how to communicate.
Yeah.
You no longer have the parent-child relationship, because no matter how old or how young we get, we always had that. We look up to our parents, we look down on our child. Even though we don't intend to, it is the denial.
And that's just how it is.
Now you guys are more equal.
Yeah.
You're more friends, a relationship. You know how to communicate as a young adult to society. And it just so happens to be your parents.
It's crazy. I'm telling you, like my mom, in my active addiction, she told me, I will never be your friend. I will only be your mother. And just yesterday, my mom was like, hey, we're friends, you know? And I was like, that's my goal in life, is to be, you know, really close, friends with my mom. And I never thought I could have that. And with AA, and I'm telling you, this PAL program saved our family. Like, I don't know if we would be a family. Well, we would, of course. We would be fighting like crazy, though, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but yeah, this meeting isn't. And that one time I sat in here, you know, they were going through a book talking about our emotions or how addicts overreact and just certain things we do that are not normal human-like, you know, or childlike, I guess is the best way to say it. And how they can help to improve that problem. I don't know. It was amazing what they were teaching, and I think it's really important that everyone knows that addiction is a family problem. That you, no matter what, no matter how hard you try, you're gonna have that. This, you know, you're always gonna have that. And having my parents be able to adjust to me and my new normal, and me adjust to their new normal with me, you know what I mean? Pal, I'm telling you, I really wish they had this while I was in active addiction, because to have a support group, of like-minded people is what keeps us sane, you know what I mean? But yeah, okay, yeah.
Can I ask how long you guys have been attending?
2 years?
Okay, so about the same time that Amber went to recovery as well?
Yeah.
About the
I
same
think
time?
she was in, Sierra one.
I believe I was in the second rehab.
Yeah,
So,
second
2
rehab,
years.
which
So
is
you're in the
2 years, yeah, let's say 2 years.
And I love it. I love coming to meet you guys, you know, and I really hope that you ask me all the questions that you're, like the dirty little things you want to know, please ask me, because it can bring you some sanity.
There's always a hope.
No,
You are.
So when you decided it was time, were you high at that time? Were you coming down? Were you sober?
I was extremely high. I was probably this much cocaine in front of me at the moment, you know what I mean? But I was so broken down, and my parents were able to move me quick, you know what I mean? We were able to do 1 week, and then I was in rehab. And I wish I wouldn't have done that 1 week, because you keep thinking about, you know, I was so anxious about it, you know what I mean? And I wish I would have maybe done it the next day, you know, if that's possible, if you guys are able to do that, even when they're high, because it's better to come down off a high in a rehab, because they check, you know, they make sure you're feeling okay, they give you the medication that will help you stop shaking, or, you know, whatever it is. But it would, you know, and maybe explain that to them, that when I went to Sierra Tucson, the first residential rehab, they had a detox center, and it was a bunch of us in a little room with beds all around us, and they gave me medication for my blood pressure. They gave me medication. They even actually, I was kind of surprised. They gave me like anti-anxiety medication that could be abused, like Xanax or something. But after I said to them, I said, I don't want to do that, but I know that they would cut it off after 3 days. You know, like they don't do any longer. But and then just to have, like, my bunkmate next to me in detox, she's so near and dear to me. You know what I mean? Like, I was able to make wonderful relationships even in detox, feeling like poop. You know? But yeah, I was high when I decided that. Yeah.
You mentioned 2 rehabs.
Mm-hmm.
Did you relapse in between?
Yes, that was what I missed out of why I went to the other one. So when I got back into those same habits, I was feeling so bad about myself, and I was going to these meetings in Tucson that were not for me. They just weren't for me. I couldn't find the right meeting to go to. You know what I mean? Because I didn't have a sponsor at that time to help guide me. You know. And so I was going to meetings, and I was going to one at my church with my dad, and that was a great one, but it was only 1 time a week. And so I would go to these meetings, and they would make me want to do drugs. The way these people were talking about it, it was like I was fantasizing about it. I didn't have anyone to talk to, though, you know, to tell them I'm having this issue. You know what I mean? I just and I was too scared to go out, you know. But so I started really idealizing on drugs, and so I remembered where I had hid drug or marijuana, hid marijuana around the house, because that's what I did. I was hiding drugs all around the house, you know, and yeah. So I went to a meeting, and on my way back, I decided to have a couple puffs of that joint, and it was laced, and I ended up throwing up all over the side of the street. I had to pull over. It was horrible. And then my mom, I went home and I smelled like weed, and I just laid in bed, and my mom started, you know, this is it, we're done, you gotta go to rehab. And we had a big fight, and then my dad found a place, and I went. And I am so grateful for that, because maybe if I didn't relapse on that quickly, you know, it would have been a long process and then start all over, you know what I mean? So for me, it was good that I relapsed, but yeah, so then I did the residential, relapse, and then non-residential.
Residential was Sierra Tucson,
Sierra Tucson.
was it residential?
Yes, that place is incredible. They don't really focus on AA too much, which is why I recommend doing the non-residential, because they'll talk more about that. But they were really good at calming me down, because your emotions are so insane when you're coming off drugs, you know. Normal person, it's like this, and for us, it's like this, you know. So we had great guidance, great groups of people. I was really blessed, and I made a lot of friends, you know, we all did. But after residential, I really recommend going to, I just recommend doing the whole process, but if you can get them to do any of it, you won, you know, well, you know. But yeah.
When did you get your sponsor?
So after my relapse in the non-residential is when they were talking about AA, more mainly focused on AA, and they were pushing me to get a sponsor. So they showed me, the non-residential showed me sponsor to the steps, and really focused a lot on that.
The sponsor is the one that contacts you, or you contact the sponsor?
So, well, my relationship with my sponsor as of now is we're friends. We call each other to talk, you know what I mean, most of the time. But at the beginning, you first introduce yourself to the sponsor and say, will you be my sponsor, you know what I mean? And you're the one who, they will always say, it's very rare that this doesn't happen, but they say, call me every day, for months. You know, some people go on for months. Mine did that to me for maybe like 2 weeks, 2 weeks to a month, and then I pretty much would call her every other day. And she would meet with me to explain how she did her steps and tell me her stories, and then I would mimic that in mine, you know what I mean? And we would meet to do that probably once a week. We met once a week for about a year. And we called each other, well, I called her, yeah, just about every other day for a year. Yeah.
Do you sponsor people now?
Well, with COVID going on right now, it's really hard to, but I have sponsored girls. Unfortunately, none of them have gone through them. They pretty much have all relapsed, but I've only done 3 or 4. But then COVID happened. But I have my friend, she sponsors girls, and we sit with them and we go through the steps and we explain everything that we went through. And because when you're with a sponsor, if I'm sponsoring a girl, I almost force myself on her, because I'm telling her my deepest, darkest secrets the first day I meet her, you know what I mean? And you don't do that with people. That's just not how relationships start. So it's immediately based on trust. And if your sponsee isn't calling you every day, there's no trust, you know, because I gave you everything I have, and you're not calling me, you know. So I got pushy with one of my And it didn't work out very well. But yeah.
So with your sponsors, if they're not successful, do you take ownership of that? Because you clicked so well with your sponsor the first time around, and some people do, some people don't. Some
Yes.
people have 2 or 3 different sponsors to get them over the hurdle.
Yes.
Because what I see, what I've always seen with Amber, is she has always continuously worked the program. She relapsed the excuses of, oh, I was fantasizing, I didn't like the meeting. Those are excuses that we justify why we go out and we got high again. But the reality is you maybe weren't ready, you appreciate the relapse, you jumped into it. But it's like you really did the work. That's the one thing that I've always, through your story that I've heard is she has done the work. You don't get the excuses. I didn't. So now that you're starting to sponsor, do you see that sometimes as of not being able to, you can see this person, you're like, oh, you're just so close, you're just right there, you want to help them so badly, but they don't.
Yeah, of course.
Is that a trigger
Of
for
course,
you?
as a sponsor, like, it really, really hurts, when someone does relapse, you can almost take it personally, because you do feel somewhat responsible for their life, but, and as you said, that some people go through 5-10 sponsors and they can't find the right one, but I was really lucky I found mine first try, but I felt partially responsible for them relapsing. I haven't heard from any of them since, but the meeting, what I do is I chair meetings and I speak at them for women. There's rehabs of maybe 100 people and I'll do a speech, or 20 people or 5 people, and I'll bring a meeting into a rehab with a chair and like my board kind of thing, And so that's where I meet most of my sponsees is fresh off the boat kind of thing, They just got sober and they just weren't ready, I guess, But yeah.
Amber, just curious about when you got out of your program that you were getting, the rehab and the sober living and all of that, you came back to Tucson?
No,
Stayed in Phoenix?
I stayed in
I'm
Phoenix.
curious about how you transitioned back into the real world. Were you living by yourself? How do you avoid loneliness and isolation? Because these things tend to make our son kind of revert back.
Very much, addicts love to isolate, just love it. Like that's our breeding ground, But I met my boyfriend right now, and he had just gotten out of rehab. But I live now with sober people. That it isn't a sober living. I live with 3 other people, and we are all on the same program, and so I make sure to stay with sober people,
So you're not back with your parents?
No, I stayed up in Phoenix, and I just come down and visit once in a while, and I'm really glad that we did that. It was a little bit scary, but transitioning through rehab to sober living to real life, with the tools that they give you in rehab, it was pretty smooth for me. You know what I mean? Of course, maybe I had some emotional hiccups, but it was good. The transition, yeah.
So how long did it take you, in these 2 years that you've been sober to,
Be on my own. Oh gosh, I think that I've only been living in this 2 years, about 7 months I've been on my own. So like a year and a half I was, what's it called? Oh my gosh, I can't remember the word, but I was in rehabilitation for a year and a half altogether. Between the
Residential.
non-residential, and so yes, a year and a half for the whole process for me. Even that little month with my parents in between, but yeah, a year and a half. And I'm glad that I stayed in that sober living for so long. They recommend 3 to 6 months in a sober living. I recommend a year to 2 years. The people that I've seen get out, like stay in the sober living for 2 or 3 months, even 6 months, most of them have relapsed. I really had to force myself, because it's very uncomfortable to be living, you know, it's just two different worlds that I'm, you know, it's really hard, and if they want to get sober, I would recommend a year, you know, in sober living, really. I did 10 months in there. It was hard, but it was worth
Yeah, they always fight you that it's 30 days or 90 days. You know, they can't see themselves in a place for 90 days. It's too much.
I know. Yeah, people, they really do. They say, I'm only gonna do the 30 days and I'm out, you know, and then they do. But even at first, when I was in rehab, I said, I only wanna be here a month. And then I ended up staying 3 months in the second rehab, which was incredible. I'm so glad I stayed in rehab for as long as I did. I seriously, it was so, you know, milk it as much as you can with the rehabs. I know insurances cut some people off sometimes, but yeah, sober living is incredible. I'm telling you, that's what made me, that you have to do sober living, you know, because they drug test you, and when you're with people who get high all the time, or were getting high all the time, you can spot it immediately, you know, because you saw it in yourself. You know when someone's high, so we hold each other accountable, and yeah.
You had mentioned the sober living was really hard because they held you to accountability. How did they do that? You mentioned the drug testing.
Okay, so there were a lot of rules for my sober living. We had a curfew, of course. I don't remember what time that was. I think it was 11 o'clock and then 1 o'clock on weekends. Most of them are like 9 o'clock and then on the weekend, you know, really early. But so we have a curfew. We have a chore board. You have to do a chore every day, sign off, you know, just simple things that addicts don't do. Like, I know when I was living with my parents, my mom was doing all the cleaning, you know what I mean? I didn't do anything. Like, I just laid in bed pretty much. And so, like, stuff like that, they get you to start, you have to wake up at a certain time, you have to be out of the house at a certain time. You have to go to a certain amount of meetings a week. I think mine was 4 or 5 meetings a week, and we were required to go to a women's meeting, which, as far as the gender rules go, I love women's meetings. I would prefer to go to women's meetings, but once in a while, I like to go to, you know, men's, you know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, what else? Gosh, we had so many rules, I can't wait, but, you know, we would have to deep clean the house. We had to have a sponsor. They would do the drug tests. We were only allowed to like have it was called an overnight. We could spend the night at someone else's house, and when we would come back, we would have to be drug tested. That was once a week, and I think I pretty much have it all. I like the house owner, the men who own the house. I was able to get really close with them, and so it was even that, you know, like we were babysitting his dog for him or something, you know. So it really was like a family, but they held us accountable for everything, you know. And we had consequences, of course. Like you couldn't have your overnight where you had to go to 6 meetings this week instead of 5, or they also required that you had a home group and a service commitment, which means that you have one meeting that you go to every week at the same place, you know, just a home group where you're always there, and a service commitment, which would be like making coffee, doing the chairs, just something to get us to help others. That's another important part of the program is that everything we do is to try to help another person, and instead of what we do is steal, lie, cheat, try to help someone else. But yeah, it's tough at first to be like, like I'm a big girl, I don't want a curfew, but it was really good for me, it was good, because like I said, I grew up with a lot of structure, and I thrive in structure, so, and I think a lot of people do, I think the majority of people do, so it was helpful for us.
Thank you.
Did you work?
Yes, I did. I started just waitressing, and yes, they require that you have a job. Yes, they require that you have a job. If you can't get a job in like 2 weeks, you have to go, kind of thing. But they do require that you have a job.
So did some people use that, the excuse of I couldn't get a job to get out? Did most people make an effort? Because now you're a young adult. Like you said, Mom did all the cleaning. I didn't do anything at home. So there's a kind of a resentment that you're in the sober living, but they're teaching you skills that you didn't have because you didn't do them at home. So with that conflict, did you find a lot?
Oh, yes, okay. Yeah, well, I've seen grown women throw a fit over that they can't find a job, which they could, and so they end up throwing a fit and leaving. I've seen women do that, of course. I mean, I grew up cleaning. I mean, my parents made me do yard work at age 11, like an acre, you know what I mean? Like, of course, but I've never seen,
But they're still a little bit different. Like if you had gone from rehab back to Mom and Dad's house and had the same rules at Mom and Dad's house, they'd be like,
oh, hell no,
no way.
Well, they tried with me, but no, I wasn't gonna do it, like if they wanted me to come home, I would move out, you know what I mean? Like, and then I would end up coming back to their house, of course, because I can't, in my life, since I've been like back and forth fighting with my parents, I've counted, I've probably moved over 30 times just back and forth, you know what I mean? Like, and plus living, I live in another country, like.
Be with us, the couch, the vibe.
Yeah, you know how it is, we just disappear, like, I would just leave in the middle of the night, or we would get in a fight and I'd pack all my stuff and, just go.
So looking back now, you realize that that's part of the drugs, but it's also part of the manipulation to get what you want.
Yes, oh my gosh, the amount, like, addicts, alcoholics, we just have a skill for manipulation, like, because I'm telling you, like, we will do, it's like, I don't have a child, but I can compare it to, I would do anything and everything for that child, you know what I mean? Like, we will manipulate, Mom, what have I done? I don't, like, seriously, there's so many dumb things that I've twisted their ways
She
on.
was 16, let's say 18, the mentality of 13.
Yeah.
Like, okay, for example, I will say, oh, I want this jeans.
Yeah.
And
then I would throw a fit if I didn't get it, you know what I mean?
Things like this, I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean,
This is a simple, I couldn't remember now, but some.
But I was constantly, I would hold him emotionally captive, I guess, like.
And also your depression, she was manipulating me. I am so depressed.
Well,
I work myself, things like this, I need to go, but it was kind of.
Well, I suffer from depression. A big part of my recovery too is finding the right medication for myself. I really, since my brother passed away, it's been, I've tried so many medications that I just gave up, and then I found drugs, I found weed, and but now I'm on the right medication, and I really think that mental health is 100% your life, well, not 100%, But mental health is extremely important and people don't recognize. Like I was in rehab with a lot of people who were schizophrenic, and it was really hard to watch them, you know, it's painful to see someone suffering, you know, and people don't recognize, what did I hear? I heard depression is housewives making it up so they don't have to clean. You know what I mean? And I was like, well, you know, I'm a child suffering from depression. I was 13 years old suffering from depression, you know what I mean? So I really think that medication is a big part. Another huge part is I did a lot of therapy. That's something that the rehabs provided for me, was one-on-one and group rehabilitation for my emotions. And so since I have been through some really traumatic things, I guess, there's something called EMDR that reprograms the way you think through light and conversation and feelings, and it's incredible.
What's it called?
EMDR, but it's for.
Is that an antidepressant?
No, it's a form of therapy. So it's pretty much how your brain works is right to left. You know what I mean? So while you're thinking of traumatic things and re-entering that area, you're watching these lights reprogram the way you think. She taught me some phrases that would make me, it would, like I think of my dog and I get really happy. But when I'm with these lights, it enhances the feeling. I don't know how, it's magical, but it enhances the feeling of happiness. So that when I am getting triggered by anything, you know, to make me go back to that stage, I'm able to reprogram the feelings through what we have done in therapy, you know, instead of feeling, what I do is I disassociate from things. So you're like, chairs are floating, I'm not really in here, you know what I mean? But we train myself to come back through certain things, through eye motions. But it's incredible what EMDR did for me, and I didn't even finish. You know what I mean? So therapy is vital.
Why don't you talk a little bit about what you did before you talk about that much, except for the NDR, but what other help was she to you?
Well, I think she really was just my therapist. I had never really, so my dad, you guys know my dad went through this accident. You see him, and it was pretty, another traumatic, crazy situation. So, I don't know, I never really connected with a therapist before, and I've been to a lot of therapists, and she made sure, she took me, and she just brought everything out of me, you know. I'm telling you guys, I was just so blessed. God guided me through everything, and I know it. My therapist and my sponsor, they brought me back to life, because when I was depressed, I was so low, I tried to commit suicide, you know, I attempted, and to be that depressed is not me, you know, I'm a very happy person, and she brought that back into me, I guess, is seeing me for a real person. We did family therapy too, which is incredible. Like, we met together to have, you know, talk about how we could connect as a family and move on from the damage I had caused, you know, or somehow do something, you know. But she was incredible. Therapy is so important. I'm telling you, for everyone, not just addicts, you know. But then, so unfortunately, my rehab shut down, so she has her own private practice now, which is incredible. But yeah, oh gosh, I'm so sorry it was so long ago, but yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of that, like getting a job with COVID, you know.
Well,
that
oh
was,
gosh, I can't even imagine, like,
yeah, right now, how
in
that
the
would
sober
be,
living.
how the rehab, yeah, would be.
I
platform, she's talking to them.
Because this is
So it's
essential.
available, it's adjusting, you know, everybody's having to recreate something,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but it's still here, they're still meeting, you know. They didn't just shut down and it didn't go away.
And if they don't go, it's an excuse not to go. They didn't, you know, like, my best friend, she holds me accountable for going to these meetings, you know, she sends me the links, you know, we hold each other accountable for these Zoom meetings, which I love. I'm so happy, you know, I love my meetings in general, but it's been very helpful, and I'm sure rehabs are still doing for boom, and they always will, but, yeah.
Is it just, you're talking the meetings, you're talking about AA meetings? Is it just one,
No, so,
or do you do several different ones? Yeah.
so I relate more. I've tried them all. I've tried Crystal Meth Anonymous, Heroin Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous. There are a couple others, I can't think of them right now, but I've tried them, and I personally relate more to AA and CA, which is alcohol and cocaine. So I prefer those meetings when I can get to them, and they have in Phoenix just a wonderful women's meeting for CA. But like my best friend, she was a heroin and meth addict and crack actually, and she likes the HA meetings, so she likes to go to Heroin Anonymous. But for me, it's more like I relate more to, I guess, an older generation, which is a lot of Alcoholics Anonymous is that. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot.
That's what our son is saying, if he doesn't want to go, because it,
Because it relates to the generation, and he always feels depressed when he comes out there listening to all the stories.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's hard, but Tucson, I can't say, is he in Tucson?
yeah.
I can't say what I know about Tucson meetings, but I know that the ones that I have gone to, like I went to an NA, Narcotics Anonymous, and then I think I went to another Alcoholics Anonymous. I chose the wrong meetings to go to.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are incredible meetings. Like there was one at our church, like I said, that was so helpful to me, you know. They helped me realize that I need to go to this non-residential one, you know. But it takes effort.
Yeah. Well, I can totally relate to this part of your story, because our son has been in and out of rehabs like at least 4 to 5 times. And he finally, the group doesn't know this, but we weren't here last week because Jason started talking about committing suicide. He hit the bottom and telling us how he thought about doing it, and that's when I said, I'm calling the suicide hotline. And they were there like within an hour, and Dave and I have always talked and felt that he would come out of these 30-day deals, but the emotional part wasn't being addressed. Well, he ended up in Palo Verde Hospital here, and he's been diagnosed bipolar and schizophrenia. And finally, thank God, is on medication that he feels amazingly. They took him off Zoloft, which he's been off for 3 years, on for, and now, I mean, it's amazing.
And he's getting therapy, so it kind of
Yeah.
relates to everything.
Yeah,
you're saying.
And now he's got a psychiatrist and.
That's amazing.
I know.
Okay, that's amazing.
That's good to hear, guys. It's good to hear.
I'm telling you,
That
like,
emotional part has
It's-
got to be addressed.
it's tough. It really is. It's like the feeling so low that he wanted. I relate to that very much, you know, and that attempt. Just for hopefulness, that attempt that I had was very short before I went into rehab. You know what I mean? And I decided, because I've also met people who are gung ho. Like my best friend Georgia, she's been to Scientology rehab. She lived in Mexico, doing, what is that?
Oceania?
It's a psychedelic, ashwanda or something, but lived in the forest doing drugs to cure her, you know, been to just all these crazy rehabs, you know what I mean? And it just took this one after her 13th try, you know, and she's been sober for 2.5, 3 years now. So you never know.
Just to add another A, there's something called EA now.
Emotional.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and he's gonna look into that. 'Cause we think that's his fundamental.
Because I went to rehab. I've met a few people with a bipolar schizophrenic, and finding the right medication has been so difficult for some of them. You know, they go through it too much, way too much. But that's so good that they found that, and he recognizes it. Yeah. Yes.
Could you, maybe identify the behavior that hurt you the most during this whole journey? Behavior of your mother and I, and or one of all of us was detrimental to you, and the change in our behavior that helped you the most. We are going to these meetings and various other things.
I can say without a doubt, the best thing that you two have done for me is to stop telling me what to do. You know, you guys are allowing me to explore my options, which has been really helpful because I'm growing. You know, I'm finally starting to grow into something. I think with me, my stubbornness has always been not listening to what they had to say because, you know, 100% of the time they're right. 99% of the time, you know, but I'm like, you know, I'm a daughter, you know, I don't want to listen. So my stubbornness was huge in that because now the stuff that my mom's telling me that when I was younger, I'm doing everything she told me to do. I'm dressing I love her style now, even, you know what I mean? And so that stubbornness, just not listening to them, you know, and I don't know what it would be for you guys. Yeah, just the telling me, but how we've changed. I think more so they at least listen to me more, which has been nice. I really like that they listen to me more, and gosh, I think that, and being apart from each other has been very helpful too. Me moving to a completely different, even when I was not living with my parents, in my own apartments or whatever, I was still going over to hang out with my mom all the time, you know. I would get in a fight with my boyfriend and drive over to her something. And I think separation has been really important for us. A lot of addict families have a lot of codependency, which, like I said, I relied on my parents literally to tell me where to tie my shoe, you know, when I was actively addicted. I couldn't think for myself. Yeah.
So Amber, I usually give the example of well, you're sticking your hand out saying, I want it, give it to me, give it to me. You resent your parents for giving it to you because, you know, it puts that I'm not capable of doing it myself, and it gives you a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Where it's you now like that they listen better to you, where before it was no, just give it to me, let me do it my way, because you talked about your stubbornness.
Yeah.
And I think all of our addicts have that, where it's just you're my parents, I don't want to do what you're telling me to do, even though they're 99 or 100% right. But then when you get that separation and they're not there, and you can't stick your hand out to say, give it, it's not there, your safety net's kind of gone.
Yeah.
And you figured things out on your own, did you not?
Well, yes, and I think that my parents they set boundaries with me. They made sure to, and I think a big part of that was this PAL program. I'm pretty sure, you know.
Yeah, boundaries.
You know, so
And consequences.
and consequences, you know. So it was slowly but surely. They weren't too hard. They've always been extremely helpful with me, but there were certain little things that they would say, no, you do this, and then slowly but surely I started like, oh, I can maybe go here on my own, you know what I mean, or do this on my own. So I've been able to venture out more and not be as resentful, because of course, how can you resent giving you everything, you know? At this point in my recovery, I'm very grateful for how
Well,
what they
Amber, okay, this is the, I think, last night we were talking about you promise yourself that you will never ask help
Oh yeah.
financially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was me trying to make myself feel good about me. Is you know, I didn't want to have to ask my parents for any help during this COVID thing. You know, like I wanted to make sure that I was able to sustain myself, and so far I have been. I mean, I'm being tortured, but you know, I'm able to do it, and it feels really good to be able to be a little self-reliant, you know.
Yeah.
And it's more and more as we've been separated, you know. And it's always so amazing after you've been away from someone for so long, you miss them, you know what I mean? And it's good to miss my parents. I think we didn't have that before.
Yeah.
What, you mentioned boundaries that they set for you. What boundaries did they set that you felt were helpful
So-
to recovery?
I think a big part of was money. It was me asking my parents for financial help, you know? Like when I had just moved into sober living, and I think that my dad, he never said no to me, but he would do it in a way that would push me to try to strive for the best for myself, for me to be able to do it. But it was mostly money-wise. Like I think there was a time, I don't remember, something about my prescriptions, you know, I couldn't pay for my prescriptions, and I called my dad, and you know, he just had to say no to me, and I figured it out, you know. Yeah, but mostly financially.
Before you went into rehab, was there a time when you were manipulative to them for money? And that's one of my sore spots. But
I straight up stole money from my parents, so I literally would take their, and this wasn't even an active addiction, this was when I was just growing up. I would steal their credit card and just go shopping. I had this sense of entitlement, you know, like that's my money. I would just spend it on stupid stuff too, but it was pretty much me. I would steal from my parents and manipulate them into making it probably into a worse situation than it really was. I know I did that a lot with my mom, is when I would get in trouble about something I would do, I would make it seem like the thing that happened, that when I had gone out, it was a horrible time. I don't know, like my mom, I don't know how to explain that. I can't really think of specific instances, you know what I mean? But I know I did. Yeah, definitely. That's a tough one, the manipulation.
So looking back now that you're clean and sober and you've got that sobriety behind you, you can see it now as manipulation.
Oh, yeah.
But when when you were actively using, it was just because you wanted what you wanted. And you were gonna do anything you could or possibly do to get it.
Yes.
And feelings and emotions are part of your worry because you want what you want.
Yeah, I really emotionally bruise them all the time, you know. The manipulation is just, that's my sign. I don't want to blow it away. I can tell you, it's almost all the time that we're manipulating you.
Oh my goodness, you were always drama and was great in us, you know.
I was always
It's not raining, it's just really windy.
Oh, no.
It's
Crazy windy. Yeah, it's extremely windy out there.
It's tiredness, it was, you know, the living people like you, Alex, is extremely great drains you, and you cannot think straight. Just you wanna go sleep and sleep, that's all, you know?
Yeah, because it was
Oh,
always
yeah.
something.
I mean, we didn't grow up for our precious time.
And looking back now, it's really, now, like being sober and being able to feel something, I can't tell you, I don't know why my parents still love me, you know what I mean? I don't get it, it doesn't make sense to me. Because what I recognize, I'm sure there are a million other things that I don't see, but I do recognize the pain that I see the families going through, especially my heart breaks for my mom. Now, you know, like when I was actively, I was abusing her. I was taking every piece of anything she had from her, any happiness that she could possibly have, I would ruin it somehow, you know, with my addiction. I don't know how she like, people are so resilient, you know, like, my mom has gone through hell and back for me twice, and she still is here. Same with my dad, you know.
When I have you have your own children, you'll know.
God, oh jeez. I don't want to.
They are precious, that's why we are here at work. They are all precious.
So
They
how
are
long,
precious.
how long did it take you to rebuild a level of trust? Since you said that you stole from them, so they couldn't trust you anymore with certain things. How long did it take?
I think that the biggest part of it was them trusting me. I think has to do with me not relying on them. You know, just little things that I'm able to, that a normal person would do, like go to the store or something. Like I rely more on myself than them. I don't know the level of trust. I know they still have a lot of issues with me, of course. But I feel that we have some sort of and living apart from them too, I'm telling you, like, that blessed my family more than anything, is not being in the same city even, to be honest. Like, an hour and 2 hours away is great, you know?
Yeah, 2 hours, that's right. 6 hours is
Yeah, I really, that separation, and I know it's hard because there are some of your kids that are on the streets right now, and
Yeah.
that separation is the exact opposite of what you want, you know. But yeah, I
So
think that.
what do you think about those young people who are not really they like it, they're fine?
So we didn't hear her, repeat the question.
She said the ones, the kids that are on the street, are they happy they're there, or yeah, do they? I mean, I've heard in AA, I've heard a lot of stories, and I've heard a lot of HA, any story. They hate it, but they know that this is what it is. You know, they have to accept it, because if they're gonna still be getting high, this is the life they have to live, you know. And of course, we're not okay with it, but this is, we have lowered our standards to homelessness, and we have to be okay with it. You know what I mean? It's just, it is what it is. But I've heard stories, you know, how they lived out there, and it's wild. You know, it breaks my heart, but a lot of the times the ones on the street have come back. You know, I don't know how many have not, but there are a lot, pretty much the majority of HA, CMA, a lot of CA, crystal meth, cocaine, they were on the streets, you know, pretty much every single one of them. So it's not that uncommon, you know what I mean? But it's saying, well, I'm on the streets, you know what I mean?
Well, you made that choice.
You know, you decided that the drugs were worth being on the pavement, you know what I mean?
So I want to just round back to Lupita, when you asked where was the trust? In a roundabout way, she didn't answer directly, but she did. Her actions.
Her actions.
Yes,
Are showing.
Her
you.
Yes.
actions are showing
Starting
me,
to touch
yeah.
that.
Yes,
We talk all the time, words don't help.
No,
It's the
it's the
action.
actions.
Yeah.
So I wanted to acknowledge that your actions really have built you and brought you to where you're at.
And,
You know?
and the trust part is me being in the program. Because me being in the program means that I'm doing my best to stay sober, you know what I mean, and build relationships with my parents, build it back up with my family. So yeah, I think that you're so right. Yeah, my actions, I guess, but 2 years isn't enough to make up for, you know.
So your family was involved with you when you were in the program, or they just left and they were not involved at all? Are they visiting you? Are they giving you food?
Well, so there was about a year where I was not talking to my parents. It was what I call my drug relationship. I was living with him, and they decided, I think, that they were just going to be supportive. They didn't really come on to me. I didn't talk to them. Once in a while, they would check up on me, but I didn't reach out to them because really, at bottom line is I was ashamed of myself. It was really hard to tell my parents I'm okay and talk to them knowing that this is what I'm doing, you know? So the biggest part of me not reaching out to them was being ashamed, and it was amazing. They really, I don't know how, they balanced it somehow where my mom was amazing. She would text me maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, just to say, hey, how are you, you know. Kind of maybe once a month once it got to the end of that. But they didn't attack me, which I appreciated, you know. But when it came time, they rescued me, you know. They came and came to the apartment. All my stuff is on the street, and then yeah. But yes.
I have another question now that you're bringing up shame. Did you first off, did you have at any point tell your parents, hey, yeah, I'm not reaching out to you because I feel ashamed? And whether or not you did or not, what would have been beneficial to hear from them? Granted, not like pushing you to come back and that, but what would have been nice to hear from them periodically?
Well, I know that I really liked when my mom would tell me she loves me, you know? Because when you're actively addicted, you're extremely alone, you know? You just feel alone. And you don't think people love you because how could anyone love you, you know? So just her telling me that she loves me is really amazing. But yeah, that really coming through is her she made sure like to say, hey, I hope you're doing okay. Just know that I'm thinking of you. You know, just simple stuff like that. Nothing like, and it, I don't know if she did. I can't remember, but I'm sure she did. It was nice to know that if I needed help, they would help me. You know, I'm sure she did.
Yeah, I understand it makes, I know what you were doing,
Yeah.
but she was so secretive. I don't know where she is. It was 3 months, right?
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4
Something like
months.
this. I mean, can you imagine? My heart is always right there. You know, you feel. Everybody the same
But
way.
then when I would respond to her, she didn't overreact. She would make it seem like everything was somewhat normal. You know, she's upset with me, but she made sure to.
Scared, also scared and alone. You feel so alone. Just I say, hi Amber, how are you doing? You know that
Just
I
the
love you.
simple
That's
stuff.
it.
Just the
It's
simple-
amazing.
Yeah.
But but I think it's important that someone knows that they have, another option, and that if they do come back, you aren't, you know, like, whatever your rules are, what your boundaries are, you know what I mean? Like, as long as they know that they can come and be loved still, I think that that's extremely important.
Now that you're 2 years clean, how many meetings are you attending a week?
So I do about 3 meetings a week. When it was pre-COVID, I would do 3-4 meetings a week, depending on my work schedule. But now I do 2 to 3 Zoom meetings. And if I'm feeling on edge, I do a meeting. You know what I mean?
Do you still have a sponsor? Same
Yes,
sponsor?
yes, same sponsor.
How frequent are you in contact with her?
Well, actually, my dad asked me recently. I haven't been talking to her too much, but yeah, yes, this is something I need to get back on. But when I am talking to her, I would say we text about once a week. The phone call maybe 2-3 weeks, you know. But I recently not so much, but we do keep in contact, but we have built a relationship of being friends, you know what I mean, after these 2 years. So that relationship of, at the beginning, it grows, obviously, so it's a little different now. But we still go through steps, like I'm going through emotional steps right now, and we don't meet together, but we could FaceTime, you know? But yeah.
What was the turning point in yourself that made you go, I don't want to live this lifestyle anymore? Was it something your parents did? Was it something you experienced on the streets? Was it just, your body had enough, your mind had enough?
I hit my breaking point. I just was so emotionally unavailable. And when I did feel emotions, they were so extreme that it was, you know, I was trying to commit suicide. You know what I mean? So it was, it really was emotional. I hit an emotional rock bottom physically. I couldn't even stand to take a shower. You know what I mean? I had to sit down. Emotionally, spiritually, I was nowhere. I had no guidance whatsoever. And a big part of AA is I'm a Christian, so I talk about God, but whatever your higher power is a huge part of AA, is building a relationship with something bigger than you. You know what I mean? So spiritually, it was every way I was broken, and I could see my family's broken. It's over. It literally in my head, I just said, it's over. You know, you're done. You will die if you continue. You know. But I thank God my mom caught me like that. You know, it was just perfect timing. But
Enabling stopped. Did that also stop some of your enabling them when they, at least trying? Or did you just always keep trying to enable them until you were ready to get clean? It's over.
It was down to that bottom right there until then. I mean, of course they had made these rules with me, and I would break them, and then they would go back on their rules or whatever, you know what I mean? But after that, I think that even after rehab, it was still an enabling relationship. You know what I mean? It was codependency. We were all codependent on each other, and so I think that after my relapse, we recognized that enabling can't happen anymore. You know, and slowly but surely, we're finding the right balance. You know what I mean? Of me being completely on my own, which is the goal. You know, and I can't wait to get there. You know. Yeah.
You're doing really good.
Thank you.
You should be very proud of yourself, you know.
Thank you.
It's not easy.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I'm so happy that you guys came tonight, because I really wish, I can't say how many times I wish my parents had this, you know, just a support system. And guys will continue coming because I think it's vital understanding why your child is acting the way they're acting, you know, and how you could possibly, if you're really, really in this to win this, you know, you would want to learn everything that you can learn to be able to help your child, and I think that Hal has just improved our relationship beyond what I could ever imagine. You know, I'm so grateful. God really guided us. I can't tell you, man, you know, like.
It just seems so hard when you're being manipulated to know the difference between being supportive because you want to be there, especially if they really want to change. So how do you know whether you're enabling or being manipulated? And are you following?
Yes, no,
Or, hey, this is it, I have hit rock bottom, I want out. Well, how do you, okay, you want to help them if that's the case, but how do you know if that's the case, or that you're being manipulated?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I know exactly. I think that how my parents addressed this was when I was doing my drama or whatever, I would say, you know, like somehow asking for something. My mom just wouldn't address it. She wouldn't fall into it, you know, and she would make me, like. If they're hitting their emotional bottom, you say, okay, well, I have this set up for you at Rehab or whatever. If you want to go, you can go. Just know that you have that option. You know what I mean? You can't keep, because I can almost guarantee that every time they're asking for money, it is not for a bill. It is to pay half that bill and then get drugs. You know what I mean? No, so I think that if it's an emotional roller coaster, do not address them the point they're trying to get to, you know, which is I need something from you. Don't address that part. Just address how emotionally, oh, well, you're okay, you know, just address the emotion. Don't address what they need, you know. What they need, what they want from you. I think that's the best thing my mom did for me is she just wouldn't really talk about address it. She wouldn't address it. She would just say, oh, okay, honey, you know, that's nice or that's bad, you know, like just if possible, you know. And I know that we get pushy. I know that we get so insane, and I can guarantee that when they go emotionally off the handle, it's because they want drugs. You know, if they're sane about it, it might not be so much about drugs, but usually if you say no and they fly off the handle, it's, you know what I mean? It's drugs always, because now what am I gonna do? Now I have to do this to get the drugs, you know, and they're pissed off. But yeah, I think just not addressing what they need from you is very important. Maybe. I don't know, it helped us.
Well, part of the summary that Hal teaches is no instant answers. Because they come at you out of panic. I need, and it's like no instant answers. So you're saying don't address the issue. It's like, oh yeah, that's nice. And then also, if they really, are they giving the words that you want to hear, or are they actually doing the action? So you come at it as, I'm ready to go to rehab, that's it, it's like, oh, well, that's nice, there's a rehab available here. If they pick up the ball and they say, okay, I'm going, I'm calling, I'm making sure there's a bed available, that's when you help, because those actions are saying, yes, I'm moving forward to the steps that I want to go. When they're just like, oh, well, I'll go to rehab tomorrow if you just give me the $20, that's giving us the lip service, because rehab's never gonna come tomorrow. So it's no instant answers, you know, let me think about it, let me discuss about it, talk about it, and then watch their actions. Because the more you can ask the open-ended question, and the more they can answer back, then it becomes their idea. And everybody would rather do their own idea than somebody else's idea. So when they get the epiphany, aha, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to go, this is how I want to get there, then they're on on board with it, because if it's all been your idea, they do it, now you become the scapegoat.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't work out because it's your fault, you chose a place, you selected this, you did this, and now the finger gets pointed at us. So it's like, you wanna go to rehab? Where do you think you wanna go? Well, I don't know. Well, when you figure out where you wanna go, get back to me, and you turn it back around.
Yes, that's
But the
right.
more you
Isn't
can,
it better that they find the rehab?
absolutely,
Yeah.
Or you want
absolutely.
rehab, you know, talk to me, where, go, you
Yep.
know, send me a link. Is that
So-
good?
No, yes, seriously.
Absolutely.
Send me a link.
And because I'm telling you, no one will get sober unless they absolutely 100% want to. They won't stay sober, you know. It's all in or all out. And if you're all in, you take action to go toward getting better. You know what I mean? I've seen these young girls. They manipulate this person, and then they call the bed, go into the rehab, and then, oh, I didn't like it, I need money now. You know that? No, you know, they'll go that far to spend, you know, all this money to get into this rehab, and then just to manipulate you, I promise you, just to manipulate you, you know? And I'm sorry, I sound so mean.
Well, that's the reality.
Yeah, reality, absolutely.
Intellectually, you understand everything. Trust me, intellectually, it's all there for me. But,
It's just the
It's
emotional,
yeah.
it's just impossible, you know, it's, so they write books about it, you know, it's emotional, you know, so it's, but we will take it as far as we need to go to get what we need, you know, and, so, yeah, gosh, it's,
I got it.
yeah, I know.
It's interesting, we just got a phone call right before, we're driving there. So we're gonna get a call later.
What?
Okay.
From your son?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
geez.
Yeah, because they always call it the most inconvenient time. They do not like that you are going to get help and understand their addiction, because they need you to be naive in order to continue to manipulate.
Yes.
I told him we were going to fail.
And they do
Yeah.
not like it, so.
No, I'm telling you, if I was actively addicted and my parents were doing this, I would be like, oh my God, I would lose my mind, I really would. Like, they're gonna figure me out, they're gonna figure out all my nasty little ways, you know? And, yeah. Well, now I just spill it,
I
but.
cannot put finger on it.
Yeah.
I cannot go, you know, I know you are up to
Oh,
something.
yeah.
But you cannot just attack her with no proof.
I know,
around.
yeah, and this, yeah.
Well, we're running out of time. We've got just a
Yeah.
couple
Yeah,
minutes
okay.
left, but since then, have you read the books that Pale recommends for?
No, I know my dad has them at the house, and I would love to.
Yeah, I would love to, you have to read
Oh,
Smoke and
okay.
Mirrors, and then give us a kickback on how you proceed. Because for us, the book Smoke and Mirrors, Mike Speakman used, and he's like, basically, it's take the rose-colored glasses off. This is what your addict does to manipulate, lie, cheat, steal. If you were
I'll
unsure,
highlight everything I
if
do.
you were unsure if your child was an addict, here's the book that says yes, absolutely. So Smoke and Mirrors book,
Oh, yeah,
it's very
it's
short, small.
You know, I will.
I would love to get your opinion back on that. And then, of course, his book of, so then, his book, of course, is the workbook of how to get through. How we help you to help yourself.
Yes, I'm telling you, Pablo, you have to. It's amazing. I love it. Seriously.
Yeah, keep it clean.
Yes.
It's been a big help for us to understand the
I really hope
manipulation,
so.
and you really have. It's really good.